Welcome back to the interview series, guys, and we'll be looking at the defer keyword today and yeah, what it's used for, what kind of questions you'll get, what kind of gotcha questions interviewers will ask you, and what you might use it for in your day-to-day occurrence. So yeah, let's get to it. Defer, yeah, it's a keyword. You can use it to define a block of code that will be executed when the current scope is exited. So what does that mean? Well, let's see. You have a function here. We have an example function that prints a line, a function, a string 1, prints 2, prints 3. But you know, in the normal order operations in software engineering, that it happens sequentially, right? So you would expect these to happen in order, but we have this defer keyword. So what actually happens is that 1 is printed, then 3 is printed, and then 2 is printed. So the current scope being this function's signature here, at the end of it, the actual defer keyword is fired, and then whatever's inside of this block will be printed, right? So it doesn't have to be a block itself, but it can be other things as well. So you can defer operations, you can defer locking things, and there's a bunch of things it can conform to, but this is the main gist of it, that it happens when the current scope is finished, right? So that's a kind of an easy example there, but you can see another example below. We have a function similarly prints 1, prints 2, 3, 4, 5, but we have 2 defer blocks, right? So we again remember that defer happens to be happening at the end of the scope of this function. So you might expect 4 to be printed and then 2 be printed, or 2 or then 4. So which one of those do you think might happen? Well, it's actually 4 then 2, right? Because it kind of goes like up to down and then goes down back up, right? So it will be printing 4 and 2 again. So again, you can remember, guys, you can do a lot of things. You can configure an object. Let's say you have an object, and then you can kind of configure it here, or you can set it to something equal to nil, and you can still use this object here. You can use an object here, and then you can still use this to configure it to nil, right? Because this will also be ensured it fires after exceptions are happen. So it's very useful in those scenarios. Yeah, and then let's go back to another example here. So see, there's a function called add value. So it takes a nothing, and his defer block, which adds 1 to the value, and we return the value. So you kind of learned about defer already. What do you think will happen here? Okay, well, exactly, right? So if you have 0 as the initial value and you return the value and then you defer something, this will only run after the scope is finished. So what is the scope in this case? After the value is returned. So actually what will happen is you'll just return 0, right? You'll just return 0 because the scope is finishing, and then you're adding on top of it, right? So make sure you kind of remember these kind of things for interviews, and you can see right here on the right, 0, 0. So very useful, and I have a bunch of notes actually on my GitHub. I'll link those to the video below. I'll link the examples as well, so you can kind of play around with them in the thing. And then I have a bunch of other questions for seniors that are more in depth, such as implementing a custom locking mechanism, a closure example for closures and defers, which is kind of like a mixture of both, which is way harder, and then some sort of complex operation where you're discussing the execution of